Hello, everybody. Welcome back to our podcast, which we have, it seems, decided we're going to call Heartfelt Minds. We're still getting used to things a little bit. We've just been playing with the technology, trying to get sound right and things. Currently, we've got Karen looking a bit like she's reporting from the side of a football pitch with her headphones and microphone and stuff. But I'm sure we'll get there in the end. We'll figure out something more comfortable. Yeah, we've been playing around with formats a bit as well, haven't we? And we've done, as well as some group chats on different topics, we also have been doing some solo chats. And it was quite interesting. We took the topic of loneliness, Jake started it, and each of our experiences, I think, have sort of bounced off the others and kind of taken something that somebody else has said and kind of run with it a bit on our own personal reflections on the topic. And I think it's such a massive issue, something which affects so many of us at different times in our life in different ways. Anybody else have any thoughts around what we talked about?
Yeah, well, I think the World Health Organization had just published all that new information, hadn't they, and America as well, around loneliness. And obviously, naturally, as we come towards winter, that's what people seem to think about, isn't it? It becomes more of a topic at those points. But I really liked listening to hearing you, Sarah and Karen, your perspectives then on something that I'd sort of talked about myself, in the sense that it's like how everyone has a little bit of a different experience. They weren't like vastly opposite opinions, were they? But just a different connection to a topic, I think, is what makes the mental health topics fascinating, isn't it? People think we know when we hear or read something, but people can experience it differently, and we certainly all did as well.
Does anyone else want to jump in with your thoughts around loneliness?
I think winter time is really spooky in a way that loneliness hits us a little bit harder than summer months. Weather is hard, and generally it has impact on our overall health as well, isn't it? What do you think?
Yeah.
Or is it just me in my young age?
No, I think it's interesting as well, because like I said, I've moved house, and my mum's like, "Oh, have you met your neighbours? What are they like?" And I have met them briefly, but you see people much less in winter, don't you? Because people aren't out in their gardens. True. They're not sort of hanging around outside in the cold at the minute, because your fingers would fall off. It's so freezing. So there's this whole period of time when everything gets dark, that you could just spend the whole time never seeing another soul if you sort of didn't seek that out. And I think that's one of the reasons why it's maybe becomes more of an issue. Everyone's like, check in on the elderly who are isolated and all that kind of stuff, because you're not necessarily going to be as likely to nip down to the post office or go out and things because it's cold. It might be icy and slippy, so you don't want to go out and injure yourself. And then you're also worried about costs and things, because you've got to put your heating on maybe, and so you don't want to go out and spend money going to do other things. And then suddenly in spring, everybody's outside again, and it's like, I haven't seen you in ages, and you've had a wall between you, and that's all. Nothing else. It's just that we don't go and knock on that door and say, "Are you doing all right?" or "Do you want to come round for a coffee?" or any of that. Depends on your neighbours, of course. You might not want a coffee with them.
It depends on your neighbours. But I was in the central London for work on Friday, and Friday around Hayton Garden, and where there are lots of pubs and Leatherland Market, and usually pubs are really buzzing and busy. It was dead quiet when I was walking towards Holborn Station, and it's like I'm walking in a ghost town in the middle of the night. And I'm thinking, I don't see other humans. And when you go home, then you don't see anyone else again anyway. So that doesn't do any good for our connections. We could talk, at least we can complain about being cold as well to someone, and we talk to another human. But we lose all that if not people are going out as well. And Sarah mentioned about going to shops and at least pre-pandemic, older people used to go to malls, shopping, big places and sit there. So they save on heating bill, really. But now, very cold weather, transport is not always good. But the staying warm in the winter is a huge thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know that they
Yeah.
have like warm spaces initiatives around
Yes.
where I am, which are, a really good thing. And it's one of the many sad things about the decline in public services. My background's in libraries, and, as well as being an amazing educational resource, it was also a social resource. People, I've worked in public libraries before, and people will come for help, not just looking for books or internet or whatever. They'll come because they're not sure how to deal with a problem. And so they'll come and ask the librarians, and, we'll do our best to help them out. But then they'll also just come because they don't talk to anybody else, or that it's warm and they can go sit and read the newspaper, or, and it's a day out. As well, that maybe they go out and they go to the library, they go to the post office, they go to, do whatever it is they need to do. But when the library's been closed and the post office has been closed, it all starts to become more and more difficult, doesn't it?
It is. And a lot of things are online, which actually we loses our connection with other humans. And during winter time, when I personally think it takes toll on my own physical and mental health, as much as I try not to catch cold or anything. So point here is not feeling well at the same time, not having connection. It's like sending someone down on spiral further down.
Yeah, if we're not feeling well, it's, we feel horrible in ourselves anyway. But then if there's nobody asking you how you are, or nobody offering to pop to the chemist and get you some Lemsip, or, and then it makes that isolation even more kind of intense.
So I'm just sitting here thinking that my experience in 2020 in particular, that's the one that stands out for me, is that I was bereft at the end of the summer. I think because we'd had such an amazing summer weather-wise, and I'd been doing some gardening and lots of outdoor activities, and then it got to winter and I just felt really low. But then I joined this amazing group called Nourish and Nurture, and it's a therapeutic coaching group, and it's all about slowing down and letting go of things and resting and taking in the harvest, sort of reviewing everything that you've done that year and resting, ready for the spring. And it's just completely changed my outlook on the winter. And I was really looking forward to the autumn and the winter this year, rather than dreading it, which is what I'd previously been doing. So,
is it something you're still involved in, or is it just that it's stuck with you?
No, it's a 6-monthly group, so it lasts from when the clocks go back to when they go forward again. So from October to March. It's a women's group though, Jake. Sorry, but it's brilliant. Yeah.
That's a really good idea. I mean, I think going sort of connecting to how we used to think about the seasons a lot. Again, this dark period. The reason that we have these festivals in the middle of the darkest time is to try and kind of don't give up hope that the sun will rise again, and and sort of remembering that, but also something about enjoying that hunkering down and preparing for it, making pickles and, all that kind of stuff. I've just been buying all loads of stuff to make some chutney and things for presents, but it's finding the activities that you could do at this time of year that you wouldn't do, other times of year maybe, and making them special.
Yeah, I like to knit as well in the winter. Yeah.
So you're going to need to say that again, Karen. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, I like to knit in the winter because it's nice and warm and I can sit and watch TV and knit scarves and squares and things. Yeah, it's very comforting, very hygge.
I just think that, so when I was talking about, in my solo go, I just remember when we set up the Christmas Day dinner, it was sort of very clear that loneliness was older people, and the volunteers were all going to be the younger people, and that was just going to gel it together. And it very, very swiftly was like clarified that was just not the case. So the stories from volunteers were actually often far more like heartfelt in their request to join. So instead of just like, oh, I'd like to come to the dinner, which we received from some of the guests, volunteers were trying to convince us about why they wanted to do this stuff over, on Christmas Day. And it was people who would say things like, you know, don't have my grandparents anymore, and it just never felt the same since, or now I'm an adult, I just don't have the same connection with, you know, things like Christmas anymore. But it was like a fundamental question for a lot of people around, what is Christmas for me anymore, or it just doesn't mean anything. I know loads of people who will say Christmas makes no difference. The only thing is that everything shuts down. But other than that, I don't really have much connection with, being festive and more joyful or whatever. We were just all talking a bit earlier that, like, Rethink Mental Illness have been doing a big campaign this winter around identifying some of the impact on people, but of course those with lived experience of mental health as well, mental health issues, saying that the pressure in itself to be positive over Christmas can be bad enough in and of itself, that everyone expects you to be positive and doing loads of things, and of course cost of living as well. I remember, when I've been managing sittings of ISO, well, not now, but over the last few years, that pressure for parents and then also children expecting the biggest corner of presents because it needs to be on Facebook, otherwise, all the other parents are outbidding you and stuff like that. All of these things, and it's why I was so fascinated about loneliness, is that all these little things, or big things, all touch the topic in some way or other.
I think Christmas is Christmas for me, but there'll be other festivals for other people, but that thing of everyone getting together and that pressure to have a good time, to socialise if you're not feeling social, to have conversations that you can't be bothered with or whatever. If you're not feeling it, it's really, really difficult. And also as well, sometimes there's lots of other reasons. So, if you've had any bereavements or breakups or whatever, and there are people that you wish were there that are no longer there, or if actually you don't get on with your family or the people that you're spending Christmas with, or if actually you can't spend Christmas with your family because you're estranged from them, or all of these different kinds of things that are there all the time, but it's these significant dates, significant events that make them more present in our mind, make them more sort of prominent, and again, thinking back on, years gone by when things were better, when things were happier. I mean, I'm not so bad with Christmas, probably because there's so much booze and food involved, but New Year, I have historically, there's booze and food involved in New Year as well, but New Year is much more of a reflective time for me, and 9 out of 10 New Years I've been seriously depressed because I just kind of focus on that sort of negative things not being the way you want them to be, or not being where they used to be or whatever. Really, really hard times, those kind of benchmarks of the year, I suppose.
They definitely are, and it's interesting because when you were saying reflection, I was thinking you were going to say, on all of the good stuff that, has happened, which a lot of people do feel is, I know some people who talk about having little pots that they have put all the positive things that happen and they open that at the end of the year, and there's loads of ways of doing this stuff, but I definitely, especially when I was growing up, always found New Year to be the worst time of the year. And it was all about worrying about what's the end of this year going to look like, what's this year got coming for it, and all of the pressures of lots of us fill in, don't we, to that New Year resolution that then, I can't remember what the statistic is, but so many of them fail so quickly, don't they? But we go in so positive, and then very swiftly you feel let down by that. And what impact does that then have? Because people then write off the year, don't they? So rather than go, I'm going to join the gym today, 29th of November, we say, I'll just join in the new year. And then, again, if you're like me, you go one day, you weigh more than you did before you went, so you don't go anymore. Then it's like a downer straight away, isn't it? It's just like, well, there we go. That's the new year, starts off on a bad front. It's just, again, interesting that for some people it definitely is a really positive, like, goal setting, looking forward to a new year ahead of us. But the pressure that can put on people, the self-pressure around not achieving what they wanted to do this year, or going into the new year with lots of challenges that they haven't been able to resolve yet. We used to open our advice agency between Christmas and New Year, and it would be people who would be so like, bailiffs are still coming and the debts are still rising, and this isn't a bright new start. It's a really difficult start that I'm trying to get on top of as much as I possibly can.
I think that there's a lot of evidence around sort of Christmas, New Year being a time when sort of mental health issues rise, and some people talk about it being a rise in suicide, but I think it's actually spring, because I think it's more that going through that Christmas period and seeing everything not being the way that you want it to be, that's when the ideas starts to form, and it takes a while for it to actually sort of cement and turn into action. Because it is such a hard time. If those relationships aren't there and aren't working the way you want them to, if you're having money worries, you're not able to buy the presents that you want or the food that you want, or you're worrying about losing, like you say, losing your house, these big things. And the amount of companies that you hear about, putting staff out of jobs over Christmas, and I know that they probably can't do anything about it, but it's you wish that they could, I suppose, but then which is better, to not know you're losing your job and spend all your money on your Christmas presents and not prepare for the the worst. But I don't know, it's just a really, really difficult time sometimes.
It can be a very difficult time as well. I actually relate this sort of time with my physical health. If someone is going through chronic conditions like asthma, and this time of the year is not the best one, and actually sometimes it makes me a bit antisocial as well. I don't feel well, I feel shit. If someone's got a cold, or I'm trying to stay away from all that situation, because I'm very good at catching things, but I'm not very good at getting better. Yeah. So a lot of us are different, and we have different ways of our worries, or what affects us is different as well. Because for me, if I have to take antibiotics and other medications, it just spiral for me. That sends me down in terms of low mood, and I don't feel well.
Rhonda, I'm sorry, but I'm just always shocked that you say shit. Like, this is your second episode that you've recorded with us, and you said shit.
I'm sorry.
Stop twice now. So I'm going to have to make a bet with Sarah and Karen that every episode that you're on in the future, even on your own, has to say shit at some point in it.
If I get my potty mouth out, you'll all be shocked.
So I was looking at the ONS, the Office for National Statistics, talking about, because you talked about the impact of physical health there as well, because we know the links with mental health, of course. But the ONS were talking about how this sort of January 2023, lots of the stuff was around food insecurity, and of course a lot of issues around the cost of living there. And they talked about how those waiting for NHS treatments was around 70% said that they were feeling that this was having a huge impact, either strongly or massively, on their quality of life at the point, and that appointments were being cancelled and stuff like that. Because obviously sickness bugs go around, and again, some of my friends who are still running organisations have been saying now they're being closed for COVID because it's just going through their teams again. And so we end up in that period, don't we, of like, there is a lot of sickness, bugs and viruses and stuff going around. The physical impacts you talk about, maybe they feel a bit heavier because the cold has an impact, doesn't it? You talked before about the winter warm hubs. I remember being in conversations around them last year, and a lot of the concern was genuinely the physical impacts. The idea of someone sitting in their chair all day long actually was problems around blood circulation and stuff then that, again, massively impacts upon physical health. But of course that's going to make you feel worse mentally as well. Absolutely. But it's going to make you feel worse mental health-wise as well, isn't it?
Yeah. But I'm not that old, but I'm already at the point where if it's cold on the morning and all of my joints will seize up and it'll take me ages to get moving. Whereas if you're older and you've got, sort of problems with arthritis and, it can be agonizing.
But I think as well, talking about winter, I was just having a little look because you were talking about suicide rate higher in the spring, absolutely. But a blog just come up, and of course, everyone we know suicide's complex, don't we? So we can't say these things are absolutely fact. But they're saying that the concern about suicides in the spring is often the energy. People having more energy as we get towards that early or springtime to sadly act upon those thoughts. There's a lot of the issues there around winter, which is why I was just connecting it with, those thoughts around like in the morning. I absolutely find it harder to get up in the morning in the winter. It's cold. It's going to be dark before you've finished work anyway. So then like your day is just work, isn't it? In the winter, it's just work. Like, 4 o'clock, I think I finished doing training yesterday. It was dark. And you just think there's not much then you can, not really, it's not like enticing to go out for a walk then, is it? And stuff like that. So I just think overall, for some of us, it can just make things feel lower anyway. So it's just harder to get that motivation going, isn't it? To go, right, I'm going to go out and face the cold and I'm going to go and do this. So you just become a bit more inactive.
I think that thing about modern life it's not in tune with natural cycles and things like that, in terms of
Daylight.
waking up on a morning, it's the light that triggers the changes of all those chemicals which wake you up and make give you energy to actually function and start the process and whatever. Whereas if we're having to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning or 6 o'clock in the morning to go to work to get there for whatever time, and then we're going to we're coming back after it's dark, having been in an office all day or in a factory or whatever. And then our days are unnaturally extended because we've got these nice electric lights, and it all gets out of whack, doesn't it? When you're talking about sort of the low mood that hits a lot of us in winter, we talk a lot about seasonal affective disorder and that kind of lack of vitamin D and stuff, which leads to an increase in depression. But it's interesting as well that you with people with bipolar disorder, sometimes in the spring, you'll see an increase in manic episodes. Again, possibly connected to that change of light or whatever, which has an increase on. So it's all fascinating, I think, and also something that we can learn about in ourselves to know what to look out for, what to the warning signs that might make us be able to take action, which prevents that sort of downward spiral for us or whatever. And that's kind of going back to sort of what Karen was saying about working with the seasons, working with it, and trying to find things that we can actually see as positives. And yes, we know that it's dark, it's cold, it's whatever. There are lots of potential things that might make us feel worse, but there's also opportunities. And it's like at the minute I'm trying to throw myself back into cooking and making stews and curries and things that take time to sort of sit and simmer away, and filling the house with smells, and I'm going to bake my Christmas cake at the weekend and make some presents, and also looking out for activities I can do with my friends, and venturing out a little bit more, even though it is cold, to make sure that I am keeping those connections going, and sort of looking out for. I've got a friend who's going to be in a pantomime, and I'm really looking forward to going and seeing her do that. So things that are very specific to this time of year, to sort of enjoy that, and then have good memories as well, to take me through into next year. How about you? What do you enjoy?
I was going out for a walk and I saw little squirrel, and it just reminded me how we can take tips from our wildlife friends to kind of relax and take this time to recharge our batteries. Don't laugh when I talk. Yeah, and that's what I do. And I also find that this is a quiet time, so we can plan.
I've just got the impression of you running around like a squirrel. Because you're talking about taking
least I'm
inspiration
not-
from squirrel. But
See,
I don't know what else
if
they
I
do.
use words that you don't like, you and Karen look at each other. So when I talk nice lady type, then it's a problem as well.
It's not a problem. It's lovely.
Can you just,
I think you make a
can you
good
just repeat
squirrel.
though what you? That's what
True.
the connection with the squirrels were.
No, it's like this. I started it with this morning when I had gone out for a walk. I noticed, and I said to myself, "Yeah, we can learn from even other, our wildlife friends to rest, and recharge our battery, which is very, very important, isn't it? That
Absolutely.
use this
Yeah.
quiet time
Yeah.
to do lots of other things, but at the same time,
Yeah.
take rest that we need, we deserve sometimes as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I often use at least when between Christmas and New Year, the quiet time to make forward planning for next year. And, it just makes life easier. Silly things like make a list of birthday cards. Nowadays, I suppose we don't send many because it's all digital. But even then, you only have to go to shops once and you buy whole month's cards, if you know what I mean. And
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just spent the weekend in York, and we with a friend, and we just went round the Christmas market there, and we went round the ordinary sort of shambles market, and that was just really lovely. Didn't buy anything, just wandered around, smelling the smells, and looking at all the lovely things and the lights, and that was really lovely, really nice sort of afternoon. And then we went back to we'd hired this ridiculously luxurious rooftop apartment, and we just sat and watched rubbishy Christmas films, which were just not, they weren't. It wasn't good drama, but just got us in the Christmas mood. Yeah, so that's what I'm currently enjoying about Christmas. Looking forward to more of those films, and just the lights and gifts and seeing people.
I have a big argument every year about what is and isn't a Christmas film. Because I'm quite specific about what is a Christmas film. Because my Christmas films don't involve burglars, aliens, terrorists. So that means that neither Home Alone, Gremlins, or Die Hard is a Christmas film to me. But then that gets me in a lot of trouble. Like to do.
Running around like a squirrel in the park, I think, is definitely my take home from this episode. I just can't believe it. I absolutely. This is the thing. You see, I'm really weird in that. Like at the moment, I don't like Christmas songs, and then in January, I'll play Christmas songs. So I'm a bit like polar opposite to people. So I don't like it when everyone else does it, but I'll do my own sort of version. So I'll be driving to things in January, listening to driving over Christmas song type thing, right? So I love it's just weird. But I love Christmas markets. But then again, I'm also one who doesn't like really busy sort of stuff. So it's just more of a seeing that happen. And it is, of course, it's really heartwarming to see families and individuals and couples going to the Christmas market and making a night of it. And I do like Christmas lights and all those type of things. So last year I got one of those. And I thought they were fake, but apparently they are real mini Christmas trees. I don't know what the exact term is, but I thought Christmas trees had to be huge. But it was an actual Christmas tree that was small, and it had the coloured fairy lights, the red, blue, green, yellow, whatever. And it's just really nice. And I like a lot of that stuff. But I do think I just used to find it hard that it's like a forced closure sometimes. If your organisation closes for 2 weeks, it's a long time. If you don't have much family or you're away from them, and think about COVID, I think 2020 we couldn't go and see family. I can't remember if we did have restrictions, didn't we, over that Christmas period and stuff. But yeah, I think I like the smells and that sort of stuff. And I do, I watch, because I was talking to someone on a course last week about ASMR. They love ASMR as their form of self-care. So they were talking to the group about forms of ASMR. And for them, if they have on their second screen a fire like just a whole, like it's just a full screen of a fire, but it's the crackling sounds that play in the background, which I like all of those type of stuff. But I do like the idea of like a hot chocolate or a cup of tea while it is snowing or really cold outside, but you don't have to worry about, do you know what I mean? So it's like you can enjoy it, but you don't have to really worry about you're not trying to scrape the ice off your car or whatever, so.
So Rana's talking about taking tips from nature. When I do a pub quiz, and one of the questions this weekend was about bears when they go into hibernation, and apparently bears can gain between 1,000 and 1,200 pounds in order to go into hibernation, and I'm going to take that as my inspiration this year. I'm going to see if I can put on as much as a bear over Christmas. Okay, we're going to take a break. See you in a minute. So we've talked a little bit about what we like about winter, but obviously there are sometimes particularly rough patches or things that we might not be looking forward to. Just thinking a little bit about what gets us through or what's going to get us through. I know for me, one concern is because recently separated, I don't really know what I'm doing for Christmas this year. I don't know if I'm going to go back to my parents or if I'm going to go and have a friend's Christmas. I know somebody who's having a lot of friends over, or am I going to stay home? And, I think one of the things is trying to not sort of give in to any pressure to do something that I don't really want to do, and to make that sort of Christmas period whatever I want it to be, even if it's just I want to, veg out and eat Chinese takeaway and watch horror films, then that's fine, and not kind of feel like I have to make it the perfect Christmas that I've had in the past or anything like that. It's just, but making sure as well that I do, when I need it, that I do reach out, I do go and see the friends, and I do talk to my family and whatever. And another thing is to try and make myself get back into a regular habit of exercise, which I've kind of fallen out of. I've started to get back to it, but moving house and stuff was too busy. So getting back, it's difficult because it's cold, but I now live less than 10 minutes away from my leisure centre, so I can go for a swim more easily. I just need to get myself back into that routine because it really, really helps me. And I'm in the middle of a challenge, which is one of these online things where I'm doing the equivalent of swimming the English Channel, and I started it at the beginning of the year, and I was hoping to finish it by the end, but I don't know if I'm going to do that because it's gonna mean swimming nearly every day between now and the end of December, and I don't think that's going to happen. But if it, more than nothing is going to be a win. How about everybody else? What's going to get you through?
Well, coincidentally, I signed up for a 6-week trial with my local leisure centre, so I've been going swimming, and I'm hoping to continue that and then to continue with it after Christmas as well. That's really important for me to try and get some exercise, look after my physical health. I've always really looked after my mental health, but sort of neglected the exercise side of it. I do some wellbeing walks as well, so I lead a wellbeing walk. We do 2 of those a month, so we'll be continuing with those as well throughout the year.
Could you just say though, Karen, because I think I asked you this after your last session that you did,
that
because I love the idea of those type of things, but I always know that when I talk about them on like training and stuff, people are always nervous about joining an established group.
Yeah.
So I just wondered if you could talk about, do people dip in and out, and what does it look like? Like, how do people get together? And because I think those sorts of things can be good to build connections, can't they?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I ran one when I was in Derby, ran it for 8 years. It was absolutely amazing. But yeah, this is a new one. This is in Whitley Bay in the northeast, and we're still relatively new. We don't get loads of people, and we get different people, so we sort of get a pool of people who drop in and out of it depending on what else is going on. It's usually quite a small group. There's 2 walk leaders, there's 2 of us, so and then we'll have 2 to 4 walkers for most walks, and we just walk for about an hour, slightly less than an hour, and then we go back to the place where we meet and have a coffee or tea or whatever, or some lunch. And it's just really nice. It's just a social walk, but you get an exercise while you're chatting to people, and that makes it more enjoyable, I think. Yeah. So yeah,
I think the coffee afterwards sounds nice as well, doesn't it? Otherwise, it's like
yeah,
walk and then see you later. But that chance to just sit together and hopefully get to know each other a bit better and stuff. But what would you say though about people I said are nervous about coming and being around a group of people they don't know and then suddenly going for a walk with them?
Yeah, well, we are friendly. We always sort of include people and chat to them and things. So just take a deep breath and do it. Really, yeah. It is nerve-wracking to go and join a group that you don't know about and you don't know. But yeah, people usually come back once they've been once. Yeah,
it's the same for any group, isn't it? But I just do think people get nervous about a group.
I think we've got something similar here, and I've noticed that they like have the group leaders. They give out the group leader's phone number and say, get in touch and we'll have a chat before you come, so that you at least maybe have built a little bit of a connection before you actually just turn up on the day and don't know anybody.
Yeah.
I'm actually opposite to Karen. As much as I like walking, I like to walk alone.
It makes sense, though. I don't think it makes sense.
Because it's my time to connect with myself and the nature, and I like to do it on my own. No more squirrels.
I hope not, because I can't cope.
So I really enjoy walks, but I think another thing for me during winter time especially, as much as I love food and tasty food, I try to eat healthy food.
Is it the hardest time of the year to try that, I would assume?
It is, but that's why I prepare myself well in a way that's sometimes batch cooking. I'm not really that much clever. So I freeze it and, take it out of freezer. But at least it's ready. I've prepared it.
I don't know why you're putting that down. That's very sensible, isn't it?
And the third thing I do is I don't put myself so much pressure on cooking during the Christmas time, because that worries me, and that has an opposite impact on me. Instead of me enjoying, I'm worrying about things that are not excellent or I don't enjoy that much, if I be honest. So I just don't put myself under pressure. I'm doing my best, and if they don't like it, they can come in my house and cook it themselves. So, no, but that actually takes off so much of my worries, and, I'm happier, and, I'm doing my best, and that's all I can do, really. But there again, we are not, before we used to have extended family, so you're entertaining 15, sometimes up to 18 people, and that's when it gets harder. But now it's a much smaller group, so it's manageable.
But there's definitely points in there, isn't there, as you say, around the pressure that we then put on ourselves to meet other people's expectations. I saw Martin Lewis, because he's been doing his money show, hasn't he, and he talked about people feeling really guilty about given a present. They then rush to go and get a present for the person they didn't expect was going to get them one, and he talks about how obviously that can lead to financial issues and stuff for unexpected outgoings. But it's that pressure again, that people are like, oh my god, they've done it, I've got to now do it again. And he was just debating like somewhere that comes from and whatever. So I think it's really interesting. I think for me, I always obviously try to go back up to Liverpool and see a family probably in between Christmas and New Year. I think I either, since I suppose I've been an adult, like to try and volunteer somewhere and do something. But with all the COVID stuff that happened over the last few years, I then started to go to places like the Cliffs in Eastbourne and just go for a nice walk. And if you think about it, a lot of the time, Christmas Day is actually quite sunny. So I'd go for quite a nice walk on those days. But I remember when I first went to Eastbourne on Christmas, I was like, oh, it'll be dead quiet. And, it was a few hours drive and whatever. And got there, it was rammed. The car park was full. And I hadn't appreciated that for some people the tradition is to go to the nice scenic walk on Christmas Day, whereas ours was to eat Quality Street until we have to have our dinner and then watch EastEnders and then Mrs. Brown's, and all the things that now come on telly. But again, thinking about how going for a walk Christmas Day was never the traditional thing, neither such as watching the royal speech and whatever as well. But, and then this year, I suppose, because Karen, you were just talking about obviously us focusing on your mental health, and I think focusing on something takes a lot of focus, doesn't it? Which might sound a bit silly, but it's hard to focus on everything all at the same time. And I suppose this year, I've at the end of the year, I've been thinking my eyes have always been a problem. Rana, you talked about like hay fever and asthma and stuff before, and contact lenses for me always dry up, and so I'm just going to finally look at laser eye surgery. So I've got that booked in. And the idea is that I can spend some time just letting that settle in and do what we need to do. And yeah, just take it easy and prepare for... I am a preparer. I like to plan, so I'll be trying to plan for a bit of January as well, really. So that's me and the next few weeks.
Yeah, so in the next couple of weeks, we're going to be obviously meeting up a few more times to talk about different things, both as a group and on our own. I know that Rana wants to talk some more around winter and loneliness and festivity. What did you have in mind, Rana? What did you want to talk about?
It's just, I wanted to share my own journey and share with everyone that how hard it can be, but we can, we'll share a few tips, what I do, that not necessarily will be right, but it might be useful to someone.
Excellent. That's the point really
of that's the point of the solos anyway, though, isn't it? Is that we all bring our own perspective to stuff. So what you say is right. It's right for you. And the idea is people listen and they'll take some inspiration from it, or at least be interesting to listen to while they look for the squirrels on their walk. So, around advice, because I do think as advice at this time of year is really important. A lot of people then put things off because they think, you know what, actually I just need to get through Christmas and need to get through this time and I'll talk about it in the new year. But then so does everybody else. So actually it can be harder to get into support at that point when, just like the gym, for example, gyms will be dead most of December and then are rammed to the point where you can't park in January. So looking at trying to find a way of sort of getting on top of some stuff that we can, and also the angle there for people who are operating over Christmas and charities and services and stuff that are delivering just being there and being kind and caring about people makes a huge, huge difference, even if it feels like a lot of pressure on themselves at that point. So I just want to talk a little bit around that as well. So that'll be my next episode.
Excellent. How about you, Karen?
I'm going to talk a bit more about my sort of story and my recovery journey. And I'd also quite like to talk about what it's like to run an Action for Happiness group. So yeah, I thought that might be interesting.
That's great. Yeah, I mean, I mentioned I've also run an Action for Happiness group, and it is such a great initiative. And actually, the kind of 10 keys to happier living were something that really, really helped me through the pandemic. Just sort of using it as a checklist of what I was doing to sort of keep myself well. And I think that might link into something I kind of want to talk about. So linking back to what I said about New Year, about, being a time of reflection, but also a time of looking forward. And I think that can be, one of those keys is having goals to look forward to. And so spending a bit of time thinking about that and thinking about how, we can reflect upon the successes and failures, the things that go well, the things that didn't go so well, but then also, okay, well, how can we make next year better? How can we, build more sort of fulfillment into our lives in different ways? And I think it's something that I've gone from making resolutions like I used to do, which were all about don't do this, don't do that, and turned it into do this. What do I want to build in? What are the extra things I want to do? What are the positive habits I want to build, or the nicer things I want to, enjoy more in my life? So maybe I'll think a little bit about that at some point.
Willingness and wellness, you will be talking, Sarah.
Yeah, I suppose so.
And I think it'd be nice if people left comments on the podcast at the bottom and just let us know if there's any topics they would like us to talk about and think about. Because I think a lot of what we've said obviously are what we think about over the winter. I would see if there's anything particular that people would be interested to hear about, because we've obviously talked, haven't we, that we will have guests on and we will explore particular topics with people who have got those experiences and talk to us about it. So yeah, it'd be nice to know if people have got things over this December, but also obviously as we go into the new year, as we plan for our schedule of topics as well.
Yeah. And also tell us what you think about what we've been talking about. Do you have any particularly good tips for getting through the winter season and Christmas? Do you have any sort of things you find particularly difficult or anything like that? The more feedback we can get, the better. It's lovely to hear from people. And again, ideas for what you'd like to see more of in the future.
And any connection with Squirrel's, Rana's email address will be on the description.
We need an animal for you, Jake. We definitely need to think of an animal. So answers on a postcard. What animal is Jake? That's what we want to know.
Well, I cut my grey hairs off, but I was going to say a fox, but they're gone. They can see us.
Silver fox.
So. They're thankfully gone.
I've got silver fox at home. No.
Oh dear. I think you need to wrap this up, Sarah, if I'm honest.
Yeah, we've had enough. Okay, well, thank you, everybody. It's been lovely to chat again. I will look forward to meeting up with you all, and hope that everybody else that's listening is also looking forward to that. See you in a while.